Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Ben Olson. With me is Erik Johansson. We are with LSATdemon.com and also our weekly podcast, Thinking LSAT. We have an email here from Olivia.
Olivia writes in, says, I have been studying for months with the Demon and am now in the final stages of preparation for the June test. I am reaching out to you to ask if you have any tips, tricks, or advice. Ben, you already made a face. Maybe at tips and tricks.
Yep.
Tips, tricks, and advice specifically for the writing section. I have come across a lot of information suggesting that this section carries significant weight in admissions decisions. I would be interested to hear where you got that information, Olivia, alongside key components like GPA and LSAT scores. However, there seems to not be many resources available to prepare for this portion of the test, or at least not many resources that say the same thing. I was wondering if you could provide some guidance on what aspects to focus on, or what admissions committees generally look for when evaluating the writing selection. Thank you for all your assistance and for hosting the podcast. I've learned a lot so far. Best, Olivia. What do you think, Ben? Do you have any sense that the LSAT writing portion is at all important in law school admissions decisions?
I mean, I think it can play a role when people are on the margins, right? If you're down to two applicants and you can't decide between them, and you may say, hey, let's pull up the writing sample and see who sounds better in the moment. I'm sure it plays a role in some cases, but this is like whether or not to put salt on your food when you're trying to train for a marathon. Could it have some effect on your performance that day? Maybe. I don't know. That's such a dumb analogy because I don't know anything about training for a marathon, but I'm trying to think of something that just, could it have an impact? Yeah, but it has nothing near the impact of LSAT and GPA, nothing near the impact of getting out there and training every day or whatever the hell else you need to do to get ready for a marathon or an application to law school.
Yeah, I agree. I am admittedly not a law school admissions nerd in that I don't really listen to too many other podcasts about law school admissions or read up on it in other ways. But I tell people that to the extent that I have done research into law school admissions, I just don't hear LSAT writing talked about. So I think the fact that it just really isn't mentioned very much by the admissions officers, at least as far as I can tell, is a sign that it's not super important. I did have at least one or two automated interviews with law schools where they asked for another writing portion where they would give you a prompt and you would have to respond in like a minute with a written response to a prompt as part of like a final interview with law schools. So I think law schools do want to see how you can write on your feet in a way that clearly you're not, presenting some piece of a personal statement, which has been prepared for you or heavily edited for you by someone who you've paid to do so. So I think law schools, I can see why they would be interested in an impromptu piece of writing. But like you said, I just don't know that it's super important. That said, any tips, tricks, or advice on how to approach LSAT writing, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing is if you have a Demon Premium or Live plan, you can go to the lessons, log in, go to the lessons, scroll down to the very bottom. You'll see a page that says Test Day. And within that course, there is a writing sample, and basically how to do this thing. There's one lesson on that. That's because this is super easy to understand. It's super formulaic. At the end of the day, all you have to do is read a set of facts and then make an argument for why the person in the prompt should do one course of action over another. So maybe the person is deciding to go on a trip to Florida or a trip to New Mexico. They're going to give you a bunch of reasons why New Mexico is good or bad and why Florida is good or bad. And they're expecting you to make an argument for why that person should do one trip over the other. And you have to back that argument up with evidence that you're pulling from the passage that they gave you. So it's pretty formulaic. I think the biggest mistake that people make is that they tunnel vision, they make an argument for Florida, but they fail to acknowledge the weaknesses. They just conveniently ignore them, right? That's not what a good attorney would do. But at the same time, this isn't hard. So it's not graded. Don't stress about it. Just if you're going to do anything, do this, look at this one sample and then be done.
Yeah. And you will have time to do some amount of planning. When you see the prompt, there's time enough to jot down some notes on like it. I had to read it and think for a little bit on which side of the argument I wanted to take.
And by the way, there's no correct answer, right? Sorry to cut you off, Eric, but
no, you're right.
People might think that like, oh, let me read the facts and figure out which one is right. And it's like, no, the facts are written in such a way that you can make a case for either one. It's just like law school exams where they give you facts that are right on the edge, right? And they're just testing your ability to recognize all the potential issues that are in there. Yeah, you're going to advocate for Florida. Great. Why? And did you recognize the benefits of going to New Mexico? Did you address those? Did you dismiss them in a thoughtful way and not just ignore them? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's important. And so taking some time up front to list the pros and cons of each before you just dive in can help you, because then you'll have your New Mexico arguments for New Mexico that you can then respond to. One little thing that I can think of, and this comes from my limited experience in organizing, like in conversations with people trying to persuade them to come over to your side of seeing things, there's a pretty simple thing to remember, like a framework for responding to people's objections to your idea, which we called AAR, which is affirm, answer, redirect. So in the context of LSAT writing, let's say your Florida, New Mexico example, you would make the case for Florida. Then AAR, so the objection is, well, what about New Mexico? You would maybe affirm their objection. Say, yes, I realize that New Mexico has a great art scene, a lot of great like independent galleries in cities like Santa Fe. I affirm that's great. Answer the objection. However, those are closed in the time of year that we want to go there, or the art there isn't that good, actually that good anyways. It's quantity over quality. Something to answer the objection after you have recognized it. Redirect. Let's now that I have answered that, redirect you back to Florida and the reasons why, and your reasons for what you want to do. So affirm, answer, redirect. I think that's an easy framework for like responding to people's objections that maybe you can keep in mind.
I just realized I have like state snobbery right now. I was like, why did I pick those two states, and would I ever want to go to either one of them?
You're closer to Florida. I'm closer to New Mexico. I've never been to Florida. New Mexico is the land of enchantment. Then didn't you know?
I did not know that. Florida, I mean, they got some nice beaches. I have been there before, so. Okay. Well, yeah, that's great advice, Eric. Might be good advice for just life in general, right? Affirm, right? People want to be heard. Answer, because I hate it when you don't answer their question, right? It's like deflecting, what politicians do all the time, and then redirect them. AAR. Okay, cool.
There you go.
Thanks, Olivia. Hopefully that was helpful. It is kind of funny. I rolled my eyes at tips and tricks, but that's because on the LSAT, we want everyone to actually understand this stuff and not just rely on silly shortcuts. But hey, for when it comes to the writing sample, maybe that's not such a big deal, right? Because this thing isn't that important. Hopefully these tips and tricks today were enough to get you to just not worry about it and get refocused on the LSAT that matters a lot more.
Take it seriously when you're writing it.
Yes.
But don't put a ton of effort into preparing for it.
100%. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.